Well, hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Ashmit Kumar, and here are the headlines that we're tracking this evening. JPMorgan decides to include Indian government bonds in its emerging market debt index from June 28, 2024. Say Indian bonds will eventually hold a weight of 10% in its index. Experts say the move can spur inclusion of Indian bonds in other indices and help draw inflows worth $45 to $50 billion. Finance Ministry welcomes JPMorgan's decision to include government bonds in its emerging market debt index. Economic Affairs Secretary says it shows their confidence in the Indian economy. Sanjeev Sanyal, a member of the PM's Economic Advisory Council, says the move will help bring down the cost of capital, which has historically been high. Stocks declined for the fourth day running. Sensex and Nifty declined 3%. This week, the worst weekly fall in 7 months' time. All sectoral indices end in the red this week, barring Nifty, PSU and PSU Bank. Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau reiterates the call asking India to cooperate in the probe of Sikh separatists' murder, but declines to release any evidence, even as Canadian media reports about possible human and signal intelligence implicating Indian officials. No comment on whether Canada will take reciprocal action after India suspended visa services. Indian government set to hold talks with industry on the proposed import curbs on laptops, tablets and personal computers. Sources say industry is likely to seek a delay of 1 to 2 years before the new rules kick in. Global electronics majors like Apple, Intel, Google and Dell have approached the US government to ask India to reconsider the restrictions. Decks cleared for Microsoft's $69 billion acquisition of video game maker Activision Blizzard. Britain's competition regulator says the restructured proposal submitted last month opens the door to deal being cleared. Serpentine queues outside Apple stores in Delhi and Mumbai. iPhone 15 series smartphones go on sale in India along with 39 other countries. The latest iPhone line includes 4 models. Many customers said that they joined the queues last night. BJP MP Ramesh Biduri uses communal slurs on the floor of the Lok Sabha, calls BSP MP Danish Ali a terrorist, a pimp, among other expletives. His remarks get expunged. Speaker Om Birla lets him off with a warning, even as the opposition calls for stern action. BJP issues him a show-cause notice. 3 Indian wushu athletes from Arunachal Pradesh forced to pull out of the Asian Games after host nation China denied them visas. India alleges deliberate and selective obstruction of sports persons, lodges a formal complaint. Sports Minister Anurag Thakur cancels his visit to China. Well, here's the top story this evening. JPMorgan has announced that it will include Indian government bonds in its emerging market debt index from the 28th of June 2024. Now, the banking giant has said that the Indian bonds will eventually hold a weight of 10% in its index, which has a market cap of over $200 billion. Lata Venkatesh now joins us with the details. Lata, break down this development for us and its likely impact.
The inclusion in this bond index means that all over the world, passive bond investors, that is, people who have money, don't want to do their own research and simply follow the JPMorgan index, will now automatically put more money in India because India is got a big weight in that index. Now, what is that weight? At the moment, the total amount of money riding on that index is $213 million. And the number of funds which follow it is about $236 billion. Now, India's weight has been increased to 10% in that index. It will start from June 28, 2024, with 1% being increased every month. And for the next 10 months, that is ending somewhere in March of 2025, you will have the entire 10% being included in the JPMorgan index. So India is likely to get, purely for this, Indian bonds are likely to see inflows of $2 billion at least every month, starting from June up until the next 10 months. Now, the important point to note is that there are other funds, passive funds, which follow other indexes, like, for instance, the Bloomberg Barclays Index and the FTSE Russell Index. These indexes normally behave like one another. So chances are that the Bloomberg Barclays and FTSE Russell will also include India. So the amount of money flowing is not 1/10 of 213 billion, but perhaps double that amount because those other funds follow these indexes. So we could be talking about $40 to $50 billion flowing into Indian bonds at some point in time next year. The other set of money which we are not yet counting is the active funds. Many funds follow passive. They just follow the index because they can't do country-by-country research. But there are active debt funds, and they can come right away because they want to front run. They want to take advantage of a rise that will happen in Indian bond prices. So you could see actively managed bond funds entering the Indian market even now. So that's the total amount of money that can come, and what can it do to bond prices.
I don't look into the future. They have taken a decision and it shows their confidence in the Indian economy, and it's a welcome decision. They have indicated that what percentage they are looking for, and that these are the market forces which will take, the flow will come out of that.
So 1% every year, is it a good enough limit, sir? 1%?
I thought this is 1% per month.
1% per month. Is that a good enough?
Whenever the inclusion happens, it happens gradually over a period of time. It doesn't happen all of a sudden.
Is that a good enough start for us, sir? Is that a good enough start for us and volatility?
I've already indicated it's a welcome development and shows confidence in Indian economy.
It positions ourselves as part of the global economy. It lowers the cost of capital in India, both for the government, but overall as well. So in that sense, it is good for bringing down the cost of capital in India, something that is historically been high by the standards of most of our export competitors. So in that sense, it's good. And of course, for the fiscal as well, because these are government bonds. So they will now be at a lower interest rate than would have otherwise been the case. So in that sense, the interest cost into the future will be lower than would otherwise have been.
But I think the larger issue is not so much about the quantum of money. It's about two other things. One is to just have some more heterogeneity in the investor space in the bond market. The more heterogeneity you have, the better price discovery you will have in both directions. In the good times, investors may take 10 to 12. If there are adverse shocks, they may go down to 8. So I think that's the part that we should recognize, that this is passive money that's here for the long term.
Well, the money markets cheered the addition of India to JPMorgan index. 10-year bond gained in trade and yields dropped to a 2-month low before some profit booking set in. The Indian rupee also gained some strength against the dollar. Rupee remains just below the 83 mark against the greenback. Well, the stock markets, meanwhile, declined for the fourth straight trading session. Sensex was down over 200 points and the Nifty lost over 790 points. For the week, both Sensex and Nifty are down over 3%. This is the worst weekly loss in the last 7 months. All sectoral indices, barring the Nifty PSU Bank and Nifty PSU, ended in the red this week. Well, moving to commodity news, crude oil prices have risen as supply concerns outweighed demand fears. This after Russia banned fuel exports to former Soviet Union states. A decline in U.S. inventories also supported prices. Well, tensions between India and Canada continue to flare up. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has called on India to cooperate with the investigation into the assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. In a press conference, the Prime Minister declined to release any evidence related to the allegations. Meanwhile, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation reported that Canada has gathered human intelligence and signal intelligence implicating Indian officials. CBC claims intelligence was provided by an unnamed ally in the Five Eyes Alliance. Now, this alliance comprises of intelligence agencies sharing network that includes the countries of US, UK, Canada, Australia and New Zealand. A report by Financial Times has said that US President Joe Biden raised the issue with Prime Minister Modi during the G20 summit.
We are unequivocal around the importance of the rule of law and unequivocal about the importance of protecting Canadians and standing up for our values. That's why we call upon the government of India to work with us to establish processes to discover and to uncover the truth of the matter and to allow justice and accountability to be served.
Well, the government is likely to hold talks with the IT industry on the proposed import curbs on laptops, personal computers and tablets. Sources have told CNBC-TV18 that the industry is likely to seek a timeline extension of 1 to 2 years and is looking to make a pitch to establish manufacturing facilities before the import curbs actually kick in. The restrictions were scheduled to be implemented from 31st of October. Well, in other news, Micron's $2.75 billion semiconductor plant in Gujarat will have its groundbreaking ceremony tomorrow. In a conversation with CNBC-TV18, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, Minister of State for Electronics and IT, said that this is a big milestone for India and will pave the way for India's semiconductor roadmap.
It is a huge milestone, and it is certainly a symbol or testimony to the transformation of the narrative of India, specifically in semiconductors, which in 2022 used to be about why invest in India, to now a narrative in 2023 for every semiconductor practitioner company saying, why are we not investing in India? Why are we not in India?
Well, with that, it's time now to slip into a very short break. But coming up, BJP MP Ramesh Bheduri uses communal slurs on the floor of the Lok Sabha. More details when we are back. Welcome back. The government has maintained that the household sector is not in distress. This after the RBI data showed that net household financial savings have fallen to a 50-year low. The Finance Ministry has attributed the fall to changing consumer preference for different financial products. Economist Ratan Roy has told CNBC-TV18 that he does not expect the rise in personal borrowing to trigger a funding crisis. However, he maintained that the decline in household savings is not healthy for a growing economy like India.
The total amount of household debt as a percentage of GDP is now exceeding the total amount of savings. And the only consistent saver as such appears to be the non-financial corporate sector. And we know what they do with their money. They go debt-free. They're not investing. So I don't anticipate any kind of funding crisis happening to government, except that, for the best will in the world, the revenue deficit being more than half of the total deficit, government also is borrowing to consume. So households are borrowing to consume. Governments are borrowing to consume. The private sector is not investing, it's saving instead. That is not a very healthy state of affairs for an aspirationally growing economy.
The value of education loans taken in FY23 has grown 20% as of July, according to the RBI. Now, this as a larger number of students opt to study abroad amid higher fees and higher cost of living. The shares of these loans in overall personal loans, however, remains low. Ritu Singh is standing by with more details. Ritu.
Since FY22, education loans have registered a sharp rebound, even growing in double digits, but this comes on a low base. Now, the outstanding bank loans to the education sector increased to 96,800 odd crores as of FY23, registering a 17% plus growth year on year, and they've already crossed 1 lakh crores as of the first 4 months of this financial year, growing by almost 20%. So what explains this sudden spurt? Well, apart from the low base, keep in mind the demand for offline courses, both domestic and overseas, has been rising, especially post-COVID, and more so for overseas courses. The number of students, for instance, availing education loans to study abroad has increased by 215% in the last 10 years, and more than a third of the current education loans outstanding have been dispersed for education overseas. Higher inflation globally also means higher tuition fees, higher cost of living, and hence larger ticket sizes of education loans. There's also growing demand coming in for higher education from Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, which is driving the growth, and NBFCs have also become larger players in this market. Now, if you look at the asset quality, education loans registered one of the highest default rates among key personal loan categories for banks at around 5.8% and higher for public sector banks. But is that a reason to worry yet? Well, banks we spoke to said they don't think so because it is still small in absolute terms and their share in personal loans overall has remained stagnant and low at around 2% or so. But if you look at other segments of personal loans as well, you'll see auto loans, credit card receivables, for instance, have been growing much, much faster.
Right, Ritu, thanks a lot for that. Let's shift focus now to the special session of Parliament. BJP MP Ramesh Biduri used communal slurs on the floor of the Lok Sabha against BSP MP Danish Ali. Yesterday, he called him a terrorist, a pimp, among other expletives. Speaker Om Birla expunged Biduri's remarks and let him off with just a warning. This even as the opposition parties called for his suspension. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh expressed his regret over Biduri's comments. Reports suggest that the BJP issued a show-cause notice to Biduri, giving him 15 days to respond. In a letter to the Lok Sabha Speaker, Danish Ali wrote that the comments were truly heartbreaking. Ali also said that he could resign from the House if justice is not ensured.
सबके सब नाम उस खानदान से रख दिए गए। ये भी भारत के लोगों ने मजदूर ने बनाई थी, तो इसीलिए उन भारत के लोगों का नाम क्यों नहीं रहा? आज चंद्रयान अगर पहुंच जाता है सिर्फ दक्षिण पर्व में पहली बार, तो दर्द हो रहा है कि गरीब का बेटा, एक चाय बेचने वाले का बेटा, जिसको कभी मौत का सौदागर, कभी नीच, कभी कहते रहे कुत्ते की मौत मरेगा, पचा नहीं पा रहे हैं। मोदी साहब श्रेय क्यों ले रहे हैं? मोदी साहब श्रेय नहीं ले रहे हैं, श्रेय ले रहे हैं देश के वैज्ञानिक। श्रेय ले रहे हैं। बोलने नहीं दूंगा कभी खड़ा होगा, ये बता रहा हूँ। सर, ये जो श्रेय अगर जाता है तो देश के प्रधानमंत्री को जाता है।
दानिश अली जी, प्लीज
फटने को तैयार थी है मेरी। मैं इंतजार कर रहा हूं कि मैं करूं तो करूं क्या, जब मेरे जैसे चुने हुए व्यक्ति की स्थिति आज इस देश में यह है, तो एक आम आदमी की स्थिति क्या होगी। मुझे उम्मीद है कि मेरे साथ न्याय होगा। आदरणीय स्पीकर साहब कार्रवाई करेंगे, नहीं तो मैं इस सदन को भी छोड़ने पर विचार कर रहा हूं।
सुनने में जो है ऐसा लगता ही नहीं कि भारत की संसद में कोई कह रहा है, ऐसा लगता है कहीं किसी चौराहे पर कोई किसी को गाली दे रहा है। ऐसा नहीं लग रहा है कि कोई भारत की संसद का सदस्य है।
जो भी मेंबर वहाँ पे चुन के आता है वो लोगों का चुना हुआ भेजा जाता है। हर एक मेंबर की अपना मान सम्मान है, अपनी गरिमा है। अगर विदुड़ी जी के पास कोई सबूत है कि उन्होंने मेंबर साहब को उग्रवादी बोला है, अगर कोई उनके पास सबूत है तो वो हाउस में दिखाएं उसको कि ये उग्रवादी हैं। अगर उनके पास कोई सबूत नहीं है तो मैं ये समझता हूँ कि विदुड़ी जी के ऊपर जो बनती अनुशासनात्मक कार्रवाई है जो सदन के हिसाब से वो होनी चाहिए।
Meanwhile, 3 Indian wushu athletes from Arunachal Pradesh have been forced to pull out of the Asian Games after host nation China denied them visas. India has alleged deliberate and selective obstruction of sports persons and has lodged a formal complaint. Sports Minister Anurag Thakur has also cancelled his visit to China. Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Business 360. Thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned to CNBC-TV18. The news and updates will continue on the other side.